And so, our speaker is Katherine Avila from the food bank. Please welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Katherine Avila from Alameda County Community Food Bank. And I'd like to start my sharing with you with a quote from somebody who inspires me every day. She said, "I can do things you cannot do. You can do things I cannot do. Together we can do great things." Those are the words of Mother Teresa. With a faith practice such as my own, for me, it's Easter Sunday. And when Gus reached out to me, he graciously offered to choose another day other than today for me to come and visit. But I thought, what better way to spend this Sunday than with folks who are interested in doing good for the community. So I'm very grateful for the invitation to be here. I'm a lifelong resident of Alameda County. I was born on the corner of Broadway and MacArthur at the old Permanente Hospital. I have lived in the Inner East Bay my whole life until very recently when I moved to Contra Costa County. And working for the food bank in the county I grew up in is a personal thing for me. I remember when there were cornfields where the Coliseum now stands. I remember when Bay Farm Island was a working farm owned by the Soares family. We've seen so much change in the East Bay in the time that I've lived here. And a lot of it is great, but a lot of it is also very challenging now. I remember when there was no food bank in Alameda County, when faith-based organizations were able to help the community because the community was much smaller. For those of us who have lived here, we've seen a lot of prosperity. Even after the Great Recession in 2008, probably the first place to really rebound in this country was the Bay Area. And maybe you remember back when the recession hit, maybe you had to make some tough choices for your family. I know I did. But fortunately, because of where we live, I was able to find a job after having been unemployed for 8.5 months. And the job I found was at the food bank. During the time I was unemployed, I had to make a very difficult choice. I had to finally own up to the fact that I needed help. And for the first time in my life, I found myself in a very difficult position. I used to run our United Way program at my place of employment. I used to go with the CEO of our company to deliver turkeys to St. Anthony's dining room in the city. But I found myself having to apply for food stamps for the first time. First time ever I asked the government for help in any way. And I wondered at the time, why is this happening to me? But now that I work at the food bank, I understand why much better than I ever dreamed I would. Because it helped me to understand what it feels like to have to make that difficult call. And most of the calls that we get at the food bank go something like this. I'm calling, but it's not for me. It's for my children, and we need food resources. I can only feel what that felt like because I felt that at one time myself. As prosperous as this area is, I know that as the mother of a young man who's going to be going off to college this fall, I have to ask myself, when he's finished with his school, when he's completed his degree, will he actually be able to afford to come back to the place he was born? He was born in Alta Bates here in Berkeley. Will he be able to afford it? Due to skyrocketing costs combined with stagnant wages, so many of our neighbors are facing difficult choices every day. In order for a family of 4 to meet their basic needs here in Alameda County, rent, transportation, food, clothing, insurance. That family has to make $92,000 every year. No vacation fund, no going out to dinner, no college fund for your kids, and no retirement savings. This is just to get through the basics. It's a shocking amount, but given where we live, especially in terms of housing, this is a huge challenge. So one of the first places people will cut back, and I remember doing this, it's like, nope, we're not going to have pizza delivered anymore. We have to make smart choices when we go shopping. The times that I had to tell my son, I'm sorry, honey, but mom can't afford that this week, was more often than I'd like to admit. But that's the way it was. People will cut their food budget first. Oftentimes, adults will have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee for breakfast so that their child has something to eat. Even in a great, prosperous area like this, we have students at Cal who ask themselves, is there enough food for me to eat today? These are the best and brightest people in terms of folks who are going to college. Now, UC Berkeley has been rated the #1 public college on the planet, and yet 24% of their master's candidates don't have enough to eat. These are the people who are going to be our leaders when we are elderly. And I find it shocking in a way, but at the same time, given where we live, I'm not surprised. So when we have in our mind a mental picture of who is that person who's hungry, you know, there might be some visuals that pop into mind really quick. But you know, over 60% of the people that we help at the food bank have at least one person in their home that works. Sometimes 2 or 3 jobs. They're the barista who filled your coffee this morning. They're the people that you pick up your clothes from at the dry cleaners. It's the person who delivered your pizza on Super Bowl Sunday. It's that nice person in your book club. Somebody who'll never tell you that they're in need. If you ever just want to take a moment, when you're shopping at your grocery store, look in somebody else's cart. You'll be able to tell fairly soon who those people are who are in need, because the choices they make in terms of what they put in their cart is not the same choice that the rest of us make. In this country, 1 out of every 7 people is considered food insecure. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. 1 out of 7. In Alameda County, it's 1 out of 5. 20% of our neighbors are asking themselves that question. When you go about your life and you're driving down the street, you will pass one of our clients, whether you know it or not. At Alameda County Community Food Bank, we believe that food is a basic human right, that access to healthy food is a right that everyone should have the opportunity to have. Our new 5-year strategic plan is starting to focus on something slightly different. We're starting to focus on the outcomes of what it means to be well-fed. When people are well-fed, they have less hypertension and less diabetes. When a child is well-fed, she's ready to go to school to learn. When a senior is well-fed, they have the dignity of knowing that they do not have to choose between their medicine and its cost, or whether they're going to have something to eat. It's about the dignity of being a member of the community, no matter what your age, no matter what your gender, no matter who you love. We believe that everyone deserves access to healthy food. And we all know that there's enough food to go around. I mean, the food waste in this country is astonishing. But what we're also working for at the food bank is to change policy. At the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level, our advocacy department, which is one of the few food banks in the nation that has an advocacy department, works hard to ensure that we keep the safety net that we have, that we bolster our safety net, and that we advocate for people who don't have a voice, to never forget those who are hungry. Now, in my line of work, you would think that it's kind of depressing to come to work Monday through Friday knowing that 116,000 people are fed every month by the food bank. But to the contrary, I feel very hopeful, because one of the other things about living in this part of the United States, we have compassion, we have innovation, we have big hearts and helping hands here. I find it extraordinarily an honor to be among people today whose desire is to be a part of community, to have that fellowship, and who have a desire to do good. I know that if you came upon a child today and you heard them say, "I'm hungry," you'd go get them something to eat. It's just that simple. That's the kind of community that we have in the East Bay. And it's part of what sustains me and inspires me to continue to do my work every day. When our neighbors are healthier, our neighborhoods are safer, our neighborhoods are happier. When we have less people showing up at emergency rooms due to chronic illnesses that could be addressed by good nutrition, this actually keeps our insurance rates lower. When we invest in the community, it's a long-term investment that we make in ourselves. I've been to nearly every part of this county in the almost 7 years that I've worked for the food bank. And I already knew the county pretty well growing up here, but I'm so encouraged to know that there are folks from Albany to Fremont to Livermore in every zip code, not just the places that we normally think people need help, but in every part of this county, who we are able to serve. But I also know that good things never happen by themselves. We can have a wonderful idea. We can show great concern. But until we take action, that idea is just a beautiful idea. I'm very encouraged that the Sunday Assembly group here has signed up for a virtual food drive. There is a link that's been shared, right, Gus? Yeah. With the membership, where you can donate safely and securely to our work. For every dollar that's donated, the food bank is provided $7 worth of purchasing power. That's a very impactful way to help us help the community. For every dollar that's donated, 94 cents goes directly to a feeding program. It doesn't go to somebody's salary or their new car. We have the highest rating on Charity Navigator because we're extremely prudent with our resources. And we try to keep the main thing, which is making sure that people are well fed. I encourage you to donate whatever you can. That contribution will help us buy our most needed food items, like protein, always the most expensive thing that we buy when we go to the store, but also our fresh fruits and vegetables. We were the first food bank in the United States to stop distributing soda. But soda is actually counted as pounds of food, right? So when we apply for a grant, and they say, well, how many pounds of food do you distribute? We could not count that poundage anymore. So our executive director said, we're going to replace that with fresh fruits and vegetables. But we can only do that by purchasing those vegetables. We purchase 62% of the food we distribute. So when you donate to us, you can know with confidence that that donation is being used in the way you want it to be used. There's another way to help us, and I am so pleased that one of your members actually does this for me every Monday. Joanne has been volunteering every Monday to help me for over 6 years. I can't do what I do without her. Plain and simple. The day she wins the lottery, I don't know what I'm going to do. Because she's invaluable, but so are you. I'd love to invite you as a group or as an individual to come to the food bank, to come and help us pack that fresh produce. Only through volunteers does that produce ever get packed. Staff members just don't have the bandwidth in our day to pack that produce. When you pack that fresh fruit or vegetable with us, in 24 to 48 hours, that food is going to be on somebody's table. But we can only be responsive quickly thanks to our volunteers. We keep it fun at the food bank, and there's nothing wrong with having fun while you're doing good. And we would invite you to come and give your energy to these efforts. If you'd like to come and do that, I'd love to see you in the months of July, August, and September when it's peak of the season, when everything's ripe, from tomatoes to stone fruit, corn, you name it, it needs to get bagged and it needs to get into our refrigerator, which is about the size of one Costco. We're about the size of a Costco. The other thing you might not know about the food bank is that we are also an emergency response member through Feeding America. We help those across the nation, not just folks in Alameda County, although that is our concentration. When Hurricane Harvey hit Houston, we sent aid. When Hurricane Maria hit Florida and Puerto Rico, we sent food to them. When the wine country fires happened 2 years ago, we sent teams of employees to give their food bank a little bit of respite. We helped to create a new warehouse there, and we were also part of distributing food to the fire victims. Then last fall, in Butte County, when the town of Paradise was ravaged, we went into action again, and we continue to aid that community to this day. Just last weekend, we had 2 of our truck drivers go up there and deliver another large shipment of food, and we'll continue to be there for others, because we know that someday we may be the ones who are affected by a disaster, and we know that our brother and sister food banks will be there to sustain us as well. We had a brand new challenge this year, something we had never faced before. A nationwide emergency when the federal government shut down in January. Departments which usually host food drives for us or virtual food drives for us, the TSA, the air traffic controllers, the FDA, the USDA, the IRS, the Bureau of Prisons, people who had never needed to ask for help got to that point because they had to go into work every single day and not get paid. We knew folks at the Bureau of Prisons who were sleeping on cots at the prison overnight so they wouldn't have to waste the money on gas to drive home. We were really astonished to recognize the reality that most people cannot afford to miss one paycheck, let alone 2. And we were able to provide over 17,000 meals to federal employees. Now, I hope you never have to use our services, but if you ever do, I want you to know that we are here for everyone in the community. We're here for you as well. Other ways you can help. We have an advocacy department that's going to need help with voter registration. Every May, we have a busload of volunteers and committed community members who go up to Sacramento to advocate for those, again, who have no voice when it comes to nutrition. Your presence in a legislator's office can be very powerful. And thousands of people from all over the state come and join us in that effort. I'd like you to join us. No matter how hard we work at the food bank, no matter how innovative we think we are, we cannot help the community in isolation. Community helps community. And so until everyone's fed, we need your help. Thank you.